Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on subject verb agreement. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English language arts, grade 8, and the lessons that we are going to be focusing on, grade 8, sorry, and in the chapter that we're going to be focusing on is subject verb agreement. I don't know why my thing is on that bold. All right. So we see that chapter is subject verb agreement. Our subject is English language arts. Grade 8 advanced writing, and the lessons that we are focusing on is it's to use the correct verb with the compound subject and to correct errors with subject verb agreement. So that is going to be our chapter subject verb agreement, and the lessons is to use the correct verbs with compound subject and to correct the errors with subject verb agreement. All right. So when it comes to a subject verb agreement, right? We see that within a sentence, your subject needs to agree with its verb, right? The subject being the person or thing that is doing the action, and the verb being the action that is being done, right? So it needs to agree with one another. And then we have a compound subject. And a compound subject means that we are referring to more than one person, right? It's like it's being joined. So a compound subject, right? A compound subject, it is made up of two subjects that is joined by a conjunction, which is either and or nor. So that is a compound subject that is basically made up of two subjects, like two people, two, yeah, things or animals. And it is joined by a conjunction, and conjunctions is either and or nor. And if we look at an example, right, of a compound subject, and then the example is Mark and Amanda. So there we already have a compound subject. But Mark and Amanda this week, no, this week or next, because it's either this week or it is next week. And neither Josh nor my friends, meaning it's not one of them. Neither Josh nor my friends. It's not one of them. And then also, when a compound subject, right, is joined by the word and, remember when we use the word and, it's like we are joining. Either we're joining words, we are joining sentences or something, but we are joining because it's we are adding to it. So when a compound subject is joined by the word and, then it means that we need to use a plural verb. We need to use a plural verb. And plural refers to more than one. And if we look at the plural verbs, right, plural verbs, they usually end either in is or they end in es. Or sometimes, depending, they end in ies. And an example of a word that ends in ies, it's like saying, for example, one baby, two or more babies, right? That is basically to show that it is that a plural will either end in ies. And if we look at the few examples, right, it says, where do Mark and Amanda go to school? Where do Mark and Amanda go to school? And that basically means that Mark and Amanda, it refers to more than one person because it is Mark and it is Amanda. And when a compound subject, right, is joined by or it is joined by nor, because or means it's either this or it's that. And if it's nor, then it means that it's like not, right? Not neither. So when a compound subject is joined either by or compound subject is joined by nor, then it means that we need to use a verb that agrees with the subject that is closest to the verb. And if the subject, right, is closest to either the verb that is singular, then we use a singular verb. And singular verbs, they either end in s, es, or ies. And if we look at an example, it says, this week or next seems likely to be hectic. This week or next seems likely to be hectic. All right. And then if the subject is closest, or the subject closest is to the verb is plural, right? Then we use a plural verb. And again, plural verbs, they usually do not end in s, they do not end in es, and they do not end in ies. For example, after reading the reviews, neither Josh, meaning not one of them, neither Josh nor my friends expect the movie to be successful. So, this is basically our chapter, subject verb agreement. And we see that we have a compound subject, and a compound subject is made up of two subjects that is joined by a conjunction. All right, so now let's go to aplusstudents.ca, and that is where we are going to continue with our subject verb agreement. And we're going to use the correct verb with the compound subject. I don't know why my thing is this zoomed in. All right. And we already see that a compound subject, right, is made up of two subjects joined by a conjunction, which is either and, or nor, and two subjects meaning it is like two people. It is like Josh and it is Jason. It is Mark and it's Amanda, for example. How do I make this thing small? It's still going bigger. Oh yeah. There we go. All right, that's better. There we go. And we said that when a compound subject is joined by the word and, we use a plural verb. And plural verbs, they do not end in s, es, or ies. And when a compound subject is joined by or nor, we use a verb that agrees with the subject that is closest to the verb. So when we even use a subject that is closest to the verb, which is singular, then we use a singular verb, and a singular verb, it ends in s, es, and ies. All right. So now we're going to complete the sentence, right, with the base verb. And it says, whenever we go camping, either Martha or Oscar. We're going to have to add a word there. Do we say sit up or do we say sits up the tent while Sharon and I start the campfire? And if we were to choose the correct one, we would say, whenever we go camping, then it's either Martha or Oscar that sits up the tent while Sharon and I start the fire. Because they're not saying both Martha and Oscar, all right? Which means that it's either one of them. So it's either Martha or it's Oscar. It's one of them. So, which means that it is singular, right? So if it's singular, then it means that we say as our singular verb, it ends with an is. All right, let's go to the next one. It says, although the players and the coach. So, although the players and the coach, do we say admit or do we say admits? So, although the players referring to more than one player, and the coach referring to more than one person. Although the players and the coach, do we say admit or do we say admits that the team struggled this season? They hope to do better next year. And if we were to choose the correct one, because remember it is more than one, and we said when we use and, then it means that it's more than one person because we're adding on to people, right? So it is plural or plural subject. So we say although the players and the coach admit. So we say admit that the team struggled this season. They hope to do better next year. All right, and then so the last one, and then we're going to our test. Whenever the four of us play darts, so whenever the four of us play darts, Ruth or Brandon always, do we say always win, or do we say always wins? Which one is correct? And since, remember, we said it's either Ruth or Brandon, it's not both of them, which means that we're only referring to one person, right? So whenever the four of us play darts, Ruth or Brandon, it refers to either one of them, not both. Then we say wins. Because we said that when we have a singular, um, we have a singular verb, for example, when the subject is closest to the singular verb, or to the if the subject is singular, then we use a singular verb which ends in s, es, or ies. So it's wins, so not win, right? All right, so now we're going to our test. All right, so now we're going to complete the sentence with the best verb. It says the award-winning author and his editor. Do we say speaks to audiences or speak to audiences of writers and students every week? We need to choose the correct or the best verb. So since we are talking about more than one person, do we say speaks or do we say speak? And if we were to choose the correct one, we would say that the award-winning author and his editor speak to audiences of writers and students every week. In Mr. Griffin's beautiful old house, small statues of porcelain vases, do we say fills the shelves of the living room and den, or do we say fill the shelves with of the living room and den? In Mr. Griffin's beautiful old house. small statues, and porcelain vases. So we say fills the shells or fill the shells. So we can say in Mr. Griffin's old house, they fill because it is statues and porcelains. All right, so on rainy days, Daryl and his friends, do we say like to invent new board games or do we say likes to invent new board games? And if we were to choose the correct one, we will say Daryl and his friends, meaning it is more than one. So we say they like to invent board games. All right, the next one says we need to complete the sentence with the base verb. Depending on which of my relatives you ask, either Aunt Leah or Uncle Peter, meaning it's either one of them. Do we say bake the best rhubarb pie or bakes the best rhubarb pie? So it's either Aunt Leah or Uncle Peter, meaning it is one of them. And if we were to choose the correct verb, then we can say bakes because it's either Aunt Leah that bakes or Uncle Peter that bakes the best rhubarb pie. All right, the next one says although the players and the coaches, do we say admit that the team struggled this season or admits the team struggled this season? They hope to do better next year. All right. And if we were to choose the correct one, we would say they admit because it is more than one, meaning it is plural. All right. So when we stay at Mr. Kemp's farm, when we stay at Mr. Kemp's farm, then either the roosters or the pigs, do we say wake us up early in the morning or wakes us up early in the morning? We need to choose the best one. So when we stay at Mr. Kim's farm, then either the roosters or the pigs wake us up early in the morning, because whether it's either one of them, but it's roosters or pigs, which means that it is plural. All right. So now we're going to correct errors with subject verb agreement. And the subject and the verb in a sentence or clause, they must agree in number. So they must agree in number. So when a subject is singular, right, referring to either one person, animal, or thing, we use a singular verb. And a singular verb, it either ends in S, ES, or it ends, okay, let's just stop with it ends in S, right? But it ends in S or ES. And if we look at the examples, right, it says Sarah visits her grandmother. So if we only referring to one person doing an action, we add an S or we add an ES. And the next one says Brian teaches art history. And as you can see, teach, we added an ES. So Brian is one person, he teaches, which means that we added the ES to show the singular verb. And also, when a subject again is plural, then we use a plural verb. Plural refers to more than one person, thing, or animal. And plural verbs, they usually they don't end in S or ES. For example, Kyle and Jesse, meaning it is two people, they walk home. Or those brownies, we're referring to more than one brownie that is maybe on the table. They smell delicious, right? So now let's go to our test. before before we end our lesson. It says, Mr. Perry, we need to find the error with the subject verb agreement and select the incorrect verb and type it correctly. So Mr. Perry is trying to concentrate on his yard work, but a swarm of bees keep distracting him. So Mr. Perry is trying to concentrate on his work, his yard work, but a swarm of bees, should we say, keeps attracting him? Let's see. So keeps attracting him. Yes. So it says the students elected to lead our school beautification committee has several inspiring ideas, including a mural in the gym and the relocation of the garbage cans from near the school entrance to behind the cafeteria. And if we choose the correct one, we can say the committee have several inspiring ideas. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on subject verb agreement. We usually say that the subject and the verb needs to agree with one another. If it is a singular subject, then our verb ends in s, es, or es. Or if we have a plural subject, and then our verb does not or do not end with an s. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade 8s, for joining the class, and I really hope that you're going to have a good evening further. Goodbye.